Ayoko ng gulo. Gusto ko makasundo sa lahat ng tao.
If he brings back the former president in the Philippines, then there will be reconciliation.
No. That's not how reconciliation works.
Okay.
You don't put conditions to reconcile.
After hinting at reconciliation with the Dutertes, the president is now pushing back, rejecting supposed demands from the former First Family's allies. Meanwhile, the axe falls on more cabinet officials as the president's purge continues. Will this reset revive his waning approval from Filipinos? And will the Marcos-Duterte rift really end up in reconciliation? I'm Stanley Palisada, and this is the Weekend Wrap. President Marcos matching rhetoric with resolve as Malacanang announces more casualties in his cabinet shakeup. Solicitor General Menardo Guevara is out and he's been replaced by a woman, UP College of Law Dean Darlene Berberabe. She took her oath quietly, even before the appointment was formally announced. Berberabe previously led the Pag-ibig Fund and was among the shortlisted contenders for the Supreme Court Associate Justice role. There's been talk that Guevara's exit may have been triggered by his decision to recuse himself from representing government agencies in cases linked to former President Rodrigo Duterte's ICC arrest. But Malacanang denies this.
I don't think that that was a factor at all because if you recall, there was a strong clamor for the termination or removal of Solicitor Guevara at the time. The public perception that gave rise to this clamor must have been about his taking the opposite side of the issue. But you know, he and the president had a conversation about this, and the president respected his ethical decision to recuse. Now, if there was a reservation about his professionalism at that time, the president could have already removed him. Si SolGen Guevara has been there since the beginning, no? And maybe it is time for him to go to another venture. And so the president accepted his resignation to allow for fresh blood to come in.
Meanwhile, another big appointment. PNP CIDG Chief Nicolas Torre III is now the country's top cop. He replaces retiring General Romel Marbil. Torre led the arrest of former President Duterte and Kingdom of Jesus Christ leader Pastor Apollo Quiboloy. President Marcos says Torre's mission is clear: to keep criminals on the run.
Si Presidente always demands performance. Kahit na ano yung pinagawa sa iyo, you must have, you must exhibit some high degree level of performance. So maybe that is one. I'm not going to discount that. But there may be other qualities of General Torre that he might have considered in comparison to the qualities of those others who were not given this responsibility. Lahat ng promotion, reward yan, ano? But most promotions are given on merit. So let us assume that this was given on merit because, you know, it was not an easy decision on the part of the President. He considered, to my recollection, 5 names.
Well, what will I tell the new chief PNP? He knows the situation, and I will actually tell them, carry on what you are doing, because we have very good statistics concerning crime. Hindi sapat na marami tayong nababawasan natin yung krimen. Kailangan nakikita yung pulis para feeling safe naman yung mga tao.
Also out of the administration, Commission on Higher Education Chairman Prospero de Vera. He's being replaced by Commissioner Shirley Agrupis. The palace has earlier announced leadership changes to the Foreign Affairs Office, Energy, Environment, and Housing departments. But despite the revamp, some officials remain in the president's inner circle. Among those who've retained his trust, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, Marcos's economic team, Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro, and the Remulla brothers, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla, and Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla. But as President Marcos consolidates power, critics argue he's still falling short. Now, some say the shakeup wasn't enough and that the president himself should take the blame by leaving his post. But Marcos made one thing clear, he's not going anywhere.
I will resign. Ba't ko gagawin yun? At wala sa ugali ko yung tinatakbuhan ng problema. So, what good will that do? You know, I don't do things pang optics. If there is a problem, I like to fix it. So, that's what we are doing. So, expect us to be doing a rigorous performance review, not only at the cabinet level, but even deeper.
While the president stays in the public eye, the Dutertes remain mostly silent but far from inactive. Vice President Sara Duterte is once again in the Netherlands where her father is being detained. She marks her birthday there today, May 31st. Now the VP joined by the president's sister, Senator Amy Marcos, who also met with attorney Nicolas, the Duterte Patriarch's lead counsel in the ICC. Her promise, together, they will bring FPRRD home. The president previously said he was open to mending ties with the Dutertes, but that may now be off the table. Duterte allies earlier demanded the former president's release from ICC custody. But President Marcos drew the line, saying reconciliation must come with no conditions.
That's not how reconciliation works.
Okay.
You don't put conditions to reconcile. If you're sincere, you want to reconcile, let's sit in front of you. Ano ba talaga problema? Paano nangyari ito? Tanggalin natin ang problema. Pero isasabihin mo, hindi ako makikipag-usap hanggang ibigay mo sa akin ito. Wala pupuntahan na.
Yeah, and that condition
tapos
is
na. That's not reconciliation.
Bring SPRRD home daw po.
That's not even a negotiation. That's demanding.
He also again denied playing any role in the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte, who will be tried for fund misuse and alleged death threats against the first couple and the House Speaker. The House prosecution panel was supposed to present the articles of impeachment to the Senate on June 2, but Senate President Francis Escudero moved it to June 11 to give way to legislative priorities. On the ground, public opinion is split. A new Pulse Asia survey shows most Filipinos don't support removing the VP from office. But lawmakers are questioning the surveys after they failed to predict the results of the midterm elections.
We also need to understand if these surveys really reflect and mirror the current public perception ng bawat tao. Kasi mukhang hindi ganun yung nakikita natin eh. And others are saying that surveys are really to condition and to form a narrative beneficial to a certain group.
We have to take it with a grain of salt. Nakita rin po natin kung anong resulta ng survey sa ating senatorial election.
Even President Marcos isn't convinced. He questioned the same poll showing that his trust rating improved slightly but still way lower compared to the Dutertes.
Madaming ibang survey, just don't base it on one. Well, again, let's look at other surveys before we act. Know your source. That's always a imperfect information makes you make imperfect decisions. The more perfect your information, the more perfect your decision will be.
All these issues as Marcos flew to Malaysia for the ASEAN summit. There, Marcos threw support behind Timor-Leste's full ASEAN membership. And about a day later, that same country delivered good news to the Philippine government. Expelled Negros Oriental lawmaker Arnolfo Teves Jr. was re-arrested in Dili, where he had been hiding and seeking asylum. Teves is accused of masterminding the assassination of then-Governor Roel de Gamo. Timor-Leste called him a security risk, paving the way for his long-awaited deportation and return to the Philippines. Teves' camp called it kidnapping, even comparing it to Duterte's case.
My father, Arnie Teves, has been kidnapped. They just picked him up without documents, without warrants, or any form of legal documents. They just came in forcefully. They took him out forcefully. We believe that they are doing the same thing as what they did to Tatay Digong.
Kasama po sa pattern of harassment and persecution na sinasagawa po ng kasalukuyang administrasyon laban sa mga Teves, at hindi lang sa mga Teves, sa ilan sa kanilang mga kalaban sa politika katulad ni Attorney Harry Roque. Marami po si Pangulong Dutertes ka po mismo may ginawa rin yun Mukhang tuwan-tuwa itong administrasyon na to na sila ay nangingidnap.
But Degamo's widow, Pamplona Mayor Janice Degamo, welcomed the move.
Sa court kami magkikita po. Palagutan niya yung ginawa po niya. Excited po ako dito kasi nafe-feel ko many will come out. This isn't just about the governor's death, Ruel's death. Others will come out in the open.
Despite having some questions on his arrest, Teves says he's ready to face his charges as well as his accusers.
I just won with finality my case in extradition, but they used another thing about expulsion, which technically I still had a few days to reply, but hindi ko alam ano nangyari. Kasi useless discussing things. Sa totoo lang, of course, malungkot ako dahil siyempre makukulong ka kahit hindi ka pa convicted. At least, umaano na rin. Matapos na rin. Dahil kahit nung nandun ako, inisip ko, kung hindi man ako umuwi, haharapin, kailangan pa rin ito matapos Ito lang sana yung request ko sa korte na sana mabilis yung kaso. I know my conscience is clear. So ang sa akin lang, sana lang mabilis yung proseso para matapos na.
Handa na po kayong harapin si Mayor Janice Degamo?
Wala naman problema. I mean, I can face anybody in this world.
And he's not the only one being hunted. Former Duterte spokesperson Harry Roque faces an arrest warrant of his own. He's in the Netherlands also seeking asylum. The DOJ saying he left the country through illegal backdoors and is now working with Interpol to track him down. But the Department of Foreign Affairs clarifies Roque did not use multiple passports to exit the country.
Ang mahalaga, talagang mapilitan siya mag-account sa kanyang ginawa dito at depensahan niya ang sarili niya. Hindi pa nga nagsisimula ang lahat tinatakasan niya na, di ba? Kaya sa batas natin, flight is an indication of guilt. Kaya sana, harapin niya na lang.
Over now to the military. Armed Forces Chief General Romeo Bronner Jr. gives assurance no coup will ever happen under his watch. This amid renewed rumors of unrest in the armed forces following Duterte's ICC arrest. Bronner says they won't be shaken by noise and warned those sowing doubt, do not test the institution. On the road, motorists better brace yourselves. The government is finally tackling one of Metro Manila's biggest headaches, EDSA. The long overdue overhaul is set to begin next month. Crews will replace worn-out concrete, install fresh asphalt, and fix drainage systems. But since EDSA is a major artery, work will be done lane by lane, starting with the busway. Expect heavier traffic though. But the government's counter plan is to deploy more buses and trains to encourage commuting and waive tolls for portions of Skyway Stage 3 as alternate routes. To further ease congestion, MMDA is bringing back the odd-even scheme, banning vehicles on EDSA depending on the last digit of their plate numbers. But business groups worry the roadworks might hit the economy and industries harder.
We're, unfortunately, a consumption-driven economy. Philippine logistics is already in a terrible, terrible state. We will bear the costs of this traffic crisis.
Another comeback sparking debate, the no-contact apprehension policy. The Supreme Court lifted the TRO, but only for major roads under MMDA jurisdiction. Under NCAP, traffic violations are caught via CCTV, with hundreds of violators flagged daily. With complaints piling up, a lawmaker now wants a House probe.
Problema po natin, this is a first world policy being implemented with third world infrastructure. Of course, we're all doing our best to try to make it better, and we understand yung layunin po nito. But as it stands, we feel that we are not ready. The public, based on our consultations with our riders, they feel that we are not ready. And that's why I was looking into this inquiry.
And that wraps up this week's Top Stories. I'm Stanley Palisada. We'll catch you again next time for more of the latest headlines. Stay with ANC, the ABS-CBN News Channel.